If you are a Syracuse real estate agent, then you will know my next guest. Lenore is the CEO of the GSAR, the Greater Syracuse Association of Realtors here in Syracuse. And all of our mutual friends have told me, you have got to get Lenore on the podcast because she has a great story. She took over the GSAR. She stepped into her role as CEO when the board of realtors was really in hot water. The roof was literally caving in on her when she stepped into her position. The building was run down. It was just not a well run business. And when Lenore stepped in, she really focused on aiding support to the other agents and really sharpened her focus on trying to build something that would assist other real estate agents locally and give them the tools that they really need. She has such a really cool story, and I think it is a great example of how fantastic Lenore is. She is such a great person and a fantastic CEO. If you have seen the board of Realtor, the building now, you'd be very impressed to see where it had started and where it is today. Even to the point where Lenore has now set her sights in welcoming other MLSs across central New York into one big MLS. And it is a testament of how fantastic her vision is and how great she is at executing that vision. It was a real joy to sit and talk to her for an hour just because we've only met each other very briefly in passing. I've never really got to know her as a person. And I felt like when I walked away from this conversation, I knew a lot about her, the local Syracuse realtor community, and was really impressed with all the things that she's been able to accomplish. It was such a joy, and I hope that you enjoy this podcast. Even if you aren't a real estate agent, this is a great episode to really learn about the community. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you get a notification every time a new episode of the CoryCast comes out. Thank you so much for supporting and watching the podcast. If you know somebody who should be on this show, reach out to me and let me know. I'm always looking for guests, and I'm always looking for people to inspire me and inspire others around them. So I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, Cory. I'm Lynnore Fetyko from the Greater Syracuse Association of Realtors. I also am the CEO for the Central New York Information Service.
Very cool. It was really important to me that I got to talk to you because I've been an agent for like 4 years, and I'm going to be very honest, I don't know if I totally understand how it works. So I feel like this is a good education piece for me because I have no idea. I know there's a
You
lot of
have great
services you
questions.
guys provide.
Yeah, I think you have great questions.
Um so I guess we'll start with how did you get into your position as the CEO?
Yes, so I had been working for the Elmira Corning Association as the multiple listing director for 14 years, and
Whoa.
where I lived. And I guess colleagues in the industry, people that do what I do now, only back then were CEOs of organizations, recommended that I apply for the job. And so I came to Syracuse with my brief and all my letters of recommendation. And I was interviewed. And actually, I didn't get the job the first time around. They actually gave it
Really?
to, they gave it to a guy who worked for I think, the Connecticut State Association. And he sort of took a trip to Syracuse and found out that things weren't all so great at the board office, that they were struggling. And so he decided not to take the job. So they brought me back in for another interview and offered me the position. So that's
Wow.
okay. In second place
Yeah.
worked out for me.
Yeah, it works, and you've been extremely successful since then. You were saying that it wasn't doing so hot. What what does that mean? Like, was the board like in debt a lot, or was the building in disrepair?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, no, they had just put a whole building beside Courtier Printing. And I think that expenses got out of control, as I know that it can, when you're, especially in commercial construction, right? And coupled with the interest rates increasing, so that there weren't as many agents paying dues. And I think it was just like a perfect storm back then of, um, just things getting out of control. And I think they also had a hard time finding tenants for the second story of the building was all open and available as a rental. And
Oh,
what they ended up doing is renting it to doctors. And doctors would lease the parking spaces right in back of the board office, which made it difficult for the members to come for education because there was nowhere for them to park. And so they
ah,
had to rent space in a nearby parking lot, and the members and the staff had to walk to
jeez.
the board office. So,
Right.
yeah, they were working off a 5-month line of credit when I was hired. So, all the supplies they were buying was off of borrowed money. And
Whoa.
yeah, so the bank at the time had to forgive a lot of the debt on the building to help keep the organization afloat. So,
So when you stepped into the position, like that must have, were you anticipating that when you took over?
I was warned not to take the job. And of course I was young, and you know I see now in my life that the younger you are, the more of a daredevil you are. You take those chances. And I'm like, you know what, where am I going? This is a great opportunity. I did know that there was some difficulty with the association financially, but I wasn't really quite sure to what degree. And I was walking into a job with no predecessor in place. He had not been there for 8 months. And
Wow.
so, stacks of mail, a
Yeah.
brand new job with big responsibilities, in debt, and with no one to teach me the job. So it was a challenge for sure.
Yeah. So day one, Lenore gets the job. She steps into the office and pushes over the mountain of letters. Like, where do you start? Like, how did you begin that process?
It wasn't easy. The staff at the time were wonderful people, and they just helped me plug through, through the piles of stuff. And of course, colleagues from out of the area, within New York State, were there to help me and guide the way for me. And I called a lot of folks that I thought were mentors in the business who are no longer even with us today. And Gail Macario out of Westchester, and Dottie Pismopoulos out of Ulster County, and John Leonardi. He was with New Jersey at the time. So I really relied on my colleagues to get me through.
Yeah, and especially from your past life, you were worked for the MLS,
Yeah, I was the
and
multiple listing director.
yeah,
So
down in Corning, right? So it kind of,
Elmira,
yeah, you had some good like networking and some good people you can kind of pull from. Do you still have a mentor today, like somebody you like look up to and work closely with?
I do have in different for different areas. So depending on what it is that I'm doing in my field, um, not any one mentor. There's some brokers that I look up to in our area that I think are doing a fantastic job and have always done a fantastic job. And so we collaborate a lot, and they help me along the way. And I'm really blessed to be able to have the leadership that I do have to pull from. But Elmira Corning is small. So what that did was taught me every facet of the business. When there's not a lot of staff, you have to learn how to do everything. So
Yeah.
that set me up. That 14 years of hard work set me up for the position that I walked into.
Right, right. Wow, a woman of very many hats, especially when you have to step into a role where budget's extremely tight, the building is in rough shape,
Yeah.
and you set your plan forth. And was it just like a very slow, like 2 years, 3 years? Are we talking 5 years? Like, how long did it take till you felt
Yeah.
like you were turning around?
Ooh, took a while actually to step into the role and feel confident to make decisions without. I remember one of the first questions I had, and it didn't take long. Could I order toilet paper? And so
Yeah, right.
I called the president at the time, who was Dave Hanlon. I said, Dave, we don't have any money. I mean, how do I do this? What am I? where am I getting the money to buy even toilet paper? And he goes, you got to figure it out. So I did.
All right, see you later. Click.
Yeah, pretty much. It's your
Wow.
problem now.
Wow.
But,
Holy cow.
there were a lot of changes that were, in my eyes, pretty easy to make. I'm a frugal person by nature. So for me to walk in and see staff just ordering supplies from any vendor without comparing prices, without maybe even calling one vendor over another and saying, what kind of discount will you give me if you're my preferred vendor for a year?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and just knowing to negotiate that and save money by doing that. Another example was we had rugs delivered on a weekly basis in the main hallways for the tenants. And, it was Class A space. And, I cut that right more than in half. That's a luxury. It's not a necessity. Let's see what we really have to do to keep the building open.
Yeah, I feel like the toilet papers are more than necessity, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a necessity. But when you're living off of borrowed money, you want to be frugal about everything that you're doing, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
So when that is so crazy. Like, do you think it took like 3 years until things kind of turned around, or do you feel like it was like longer term than
Maybe
that?
longer than that. What we ended up doing is there was a bodega, one street over, on the corner, and it was a questionable area in regards to crime, but there was a big sort of field right next to it, and I said, why don't we buy that piece of land and put a camera up on the ceiling or up on the roof of the building, and the receptionist can watch the camera. We can put a gate around it. And that could be a parking area that is associated with this property. And at the same time we did that, we bought the land, and I was working with the city to get, permits on curb cuts and stuff like that, just to make the property more valuable and for us to have our own parking area for our members that was safe. Word got out that was taking place. And so the next steps were selling the building. And we had an architectural firm that was willing to pay, fair market value, and we made some money and paid off our debt. And that was really the first step in turning the corner, was to really unload that building. And it was.
Do you feel like when you signed the closing documents, do you feel like the weight was being lifted off your shoulder?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because we were flush, we were no longer in debt. We even had some money that we could put in an investment account, so that we could be ahead. I mean, that's a good feeling for anybody, right? Whether
For sure.
Business owner or just your own family. And we rented, and it seemed like the right thing to do at the time is to just like let's play it safe for a little while and get back on our feet and do some good things for the realtors and the membership at large, and build it. And then eventually the board decided, well, now it's time that we should buy. We're in the home ownership business, and we're in good shape now financially. So let's take a look at that.
Right. And that's when you guys had moved to North Syracuse?
Well, we were on 7th North Street for, I believe, maybe 10 years, maybe 12 years. We rented, and our landlord was a past member and was very, very good to us, and wanted to always make sure that we were a happy tenant. We were on the first floor, and it was convenient parking for our members. We were contiguous to growth areas. A 90 was right out in back of the building, and 81 was, not even a mile down the street. So we went in the right spot for the right period of time. The board got some of the bigger brokers together and the board of directors together to say, okay, you're the stakeholders in this association. Where do you think, if we were to buy a board building, what would be the ideal place for us to be? And they gave me some parameters, and we finally found this building that we're in right now, and it was the Knights of Columbus, and it was in pretty rough shape. It was a fun place, and a lot of fellowship here. So it seemed like a good fit, but the rest is history. 8,000 square foot building, and here we are today.
Yeah. Wow. It seems like for your particular job, I know this might sound a little weird, but some jobs almost have like a roadmap, right? Like if you do A, we should do B, C, D. But it seems like in your job, and I guess anytime you're running a business, you don't have that plan.
No.
There is no like, here is the roadmap to how you can get this started up.
No.
And it blows me away that you were able to take it to crazy in the hole, living off credit, to now being very successful, a very clean facility, a very wonderful facility. When you walk through there right now, you would never have known the history. It's really
Right.
cool to see the growth in it.
Yep.
When you moved to the North Syracuse office, did you have to do more renovations and stuff? You said was it the Knights of
Oh, yeah. Knights of
yeah.
Columbus. And we totally had it. There was actually a second story in the space, and they had a bingo hall, big, huge bingo hall with the bingo boards in the those big ballrooms that I call them.
I love
And
that.
we had the dance ball, the disco ball in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
of the ceiling that we still have today, right?
Do
Because
you?
I thought that belongs in this building. It can never leave. We have to feature
Yeah.
that. And so the architect helped us feature that. But it had a second story with a big window, and that all got gutted out. So we basically just gutted the whole thing and started from scratch.
Started from
And
scratch.
I knew that I wanted the staff on one side, and on the other side be able to rent the space to our brokers and members to utilize, so they didn't have to go to hotels and restaurants and pay large fees. And
Right.
we could also have the salesperson's class in education and lock down where we did that from the staff, to just have the efficiencies of staff being able to have quiet spaces to work and to be efficient. But yeah, the building took about a year of my life to do,
Yeah.
literally a year, because I was the decorator and the general contractor myself for the kitchens and a lot of the
Wow.
flooring. I like to
Literally a
do,
woman of very many hats.
yeah, I like to do that. So that for me is a little bit of a, a recreational passion. But,
Yeah.
none of this can ever happen without the right leadership. I will have
Right.
to preface that and say, there is no way if I had a leadership, board of directors, presidents throughout the years that, didn't let me do my thing or didn't support that, we wouldn't be where we are today, because they let me do my job, and that's empowering. Then the sky's the limit, right?
Right.
Um, and as you hear other associations doing different things, you think to yourself, boy, we could do that. I know that would work here, and
Right.
so it's a collaborative thing, but you got to have the right leadership too.
Yeah, right. And not only the right leadership, but also the trust in the leadership too, right? Because they really trusted you to take the bull by the horns and kind of guide it into its cattle chute, I guess is a best way to put it. And you did a great job. Like it's really impressive. When I was telling you before I hit record that I asked a few people, hey, Lenore, what are some good questions that I could ask her? And every single person said you need to talk to her about how the board started when she first stepped in
Yeah.
to where she is now, because that's a fantastic story and none of them were lying. That's a fantastic story. I
It
can't
is.
believe that.
Yeah, it's good.
So for people who might not be a real estate agent or who might not know, what kind of services does the board of realtors in Syracuse provide to their agents?
Yeah, so there's two companies. There's the GSAR, which is the trade association, and then there's the multiple listing service that is the Central New York Information Service, which is owned by shareholder brokers. And it wasn't always. It was a committee of the board, and a lot of MLSs are a committee of the board. So when you say what kind of services, I have two different companies that offer similar but different services to the same consumer, the same customer. And so the association would be geared more towards the code of ethics, educating our members, whether it's the raising the bar efforts that we have in place, or the continuing education, the salesperson's class, broker's class. And then we have the multiple listing service, which has the software that the agents use to service the customer and client and keep themselves in order. The showing service, the lockbox service, all the different programs that the MLS offers. We have to also train the members, whether it's HomeSnap or RPR or Realtor.com. Our hub is for supporting the realtor to help them do better business, and for the brokers and broker liability too.
Right, right. And you guys put on fantastic education classes. The instructors there are fantastic. Every time I go there, I'm always like, man, I want to sit through a class with that person for another like an hour, 2 hours. They're very energetic, you know.
Yeah, they're top
Um,
line with the ability to be able to bring these courses via Zoom. That's opened up a whole new world. The floodgates are off. The sky's the
right,
limit to who we can have.
right, because like you guys had the one guy who wrote
Color of Law.
yes, right.
Us.
And I
Yeah,
did that one last year. That was fantastic.
Bill
Otherwise,
Dead.
you guys would have had to probably flown that guy out over here, but
Oh,
we did it over Zoom, right?
I don't think we could have afforded him. Bill Deadman is his name. And we actually got a grant from NAR. NAR is great about giving us grants. We have to apply for them, of course, and helps us pay for some of these speakers. And actually, I just went to a national conference where they were telling the executives to, um, promote the Color of Law book to their members. And we had just had the author speak, and we did buy
Yeah.
100 of his books, and we're going to be um, we hoped that we were going to have the main event, which is our trade show in April. Due to COVID, we didn't have it. We're pushing that out into September, where we'll offer up his 100 books for a charitable donation to the Ukraine.
Nice. Oh wow, that's very cool. Yeah, like that's one of the powers that COVID changed. Like it made access to information a lot easier and kind of like more affordable, right? I mean, like we would have had to fly that guy out, would have been super expensive, but
Yeah,
instead we got to sit through like a Zoom presentation of
yeah,
ethic laws. It was
in your
really cool.
jammies, right?
Yeah, right. No, it's like a mullet. It's business up front and then PJs on the bottom.
Party on.
Yeah, that's right. So, like, obviously, the objective from the board is to like get as many real estate because not every real estate agent is a realtor. Get as much agents on board working with you guys to increase member growth, which will increase the budgets and stuff like that. So, how do you guys kind of measure that? Is it like every month? Is it 6 months, quarterly? I don't know.
Right. Well, for me, I have to stay ahead of and watch the trends. And that's why it's so important for us as leaders to know what's happening in not only just the world, but what's the prediction going forward? What's the crystal ball say? Lauren June, or we just had a speaker from NAR that was an economist. To know what's going to happen in the market in the future will tell us what's going to happen with our membership. So right after COVID, I was budgeting for a 5% member loss. Who knew the real estate market was going to explode in 2012 or 2021? So I didn't have a problem at all. But we were the first association to offer the salesperson's course in 2020. We offered that in
Wow.
July via Zoom. And we had 28 students from all over New York State because we were promoting it all over because we
Right.
knew that we needed to cycle in new members as members were making decisions whether or not they wanted to sell real estate. A lot of folks were making life changes for themselves. So we needed to filter in new blood. So that is an ongoing thing. That's why we have the salesperson's classes often as we do, because the brokers need to, as folks cycle into other businesses, if it doesn't fit for them or they're retiring or they're moving, we need to, constantly be building that professional blood for the brokerages to have healthy brokerages.
Right. And that's I was one of the questions I was gonna ask too was like how you focus on growing it. But that seems like what a best way to advertise how awesome the GSAR is by being one of the first people offering it after literally everything shut down for months. We could be like, but you can take your course nowhere else in New York State, but you could do it right here with this Zoom link.
With
Like
a
that's
live
impressive.
instructor, via Zoom, but still, I don't think that I could take a course reading material and taking a test. I need that conversation with an instructor, right?
Yeah.
And the best thing that we could do is not skip a beat and just keep moving forward. And those were trying times, of course, but
Yeah. And then I will say I think my only regret becoming a real estate agent is the fact that when I did my course, it was all online. It wasn't even Zoom. It was literally like click next slide, read video. But I'm very much like you, Lenore. Like I want some social interaction. I want to talk to other people. I want to bounce things off people. But only I will say though, it was super convenient because I was working a full-time retail job. So I was able to like I would come home on nights and then bang out 4 hours of it and then go to bed and then go back to work and then come home and then do 5 more hours. So like it was very convenient for my schedule. But I do miss that opportunity. I wish I would have just taken like the time off from work and went in person, just
Right,
because I
right.
feel there's just so much you can learn from other people sitting in the
Yeah.
classroom
And
with
the
you, you know?
relationship that you make, if that's the direction that you were going to go in.
Right, right. Uh, you said you were talking about looking into your crystal ball. What do you envision the GSAR looking like in the next 10 years?
Right. So I think a lot of us executives for Association of Realtors are sort of taking a wait and see approach. A lot of them are going back to the way things were, and I don't choose to do that. I think there's efficiencies that we've been forced into accepting in our lives. We would never get rid of Teams here. We, at the final hour, we're taught how to use Zoom and Teams from
Yeah,
our IT provider, and we struggled through learning it by fire, but efficient as anything. And, you know, hybrid is something we're testing. We sent a questionnaire to the membership to ask which they prefer, Zoom, education, or in person. It was 52% Zoom and 48% in person. The
yeah, I could see
questions
that.
that I did miss asking, and I will do it again. I should have said, which would you prefer, November to March? And
Yeah,
which would you, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
nobody wants to go out in the cold
Right,
and the snow for a 3-hour course. I don't care who you are. They get all
right.
dressed up in makeup and the whole 9 yards. And I think that now that we can have courses, 1, 2, and 3-hour courses, and we want to do that and see how that works for members. For someone to take an hour or two out of their day, do they want to drive from, Cicero or from Lafayette or wherever and have to do that? Or they can jump on Zoom.
Right.
And I don't think I've ever really even met you in person, but I think I know you pretty well,
Yeah, right, from all the
right?
video conferencing, right?
Right.
Isn't that
So I
funny?
think that we can do that. We just have to open our minds to allow what we thought we had to have in person. We can make it happen
Yeah.
via the internet. And so we're going to be launching a product that is within the member portal. It's called TradeWing, and you'll hear more about it. We'll have our own little world right in the member portal so that you can talk to one another, and things will happen quicker for you
Nice,
than
nice.
what they have in the past. So my crystal ball says embrace what we've been through. Don't let it go by the wayside. There are efficiencies with it. If leadership supports my vision, I don't know that we need big spaces anymore to hold meetings. Maybe we will see that we do enough that bring people together for social networking, that when it comes to training and education, maybe we can accomplish that in a more efficient way.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how everything had just shifted so much now, like I used to I still do every time I have a client that's putting together a purchase offer, right? I always would first one we do together, top to bottom, we go front to back, go over the whole thing. And now I do it all through Google Meet. So if they love the house, we'll hop on a session real quick because they can do it in the comfort of their home. I can do a video real quick. I'll share my screen. We can go line by line. And I had no idea how to use that technology literally 2 years
I agree.
ago.
I agree. We got
And
forced into it, and you
yeah,
took the best part out, and you're
right.
taking the best parts out. And if our largest sector of buyers are millennials, then everybody
Right.
has to get up to speed with this kind of
Yeah.
delivery of service, right?
Right.
And
Right.
for me to show the example, not say you should be doing this, but oh wait a minute, we're not here. I can't
Yeah.
do
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Lead by example, right?
Exactly.
So in your office, if you could wave a magic wand and get like one expensive piece of equipment or tool or something, what would your heart be set on?
I got to tell you, there's nothing. We are very fortunate that our leadership wants me to budget for a constant computer upgrading. The staff all wanted plug and play laptops so that they could take them home if they needed to work from home. You know, if their kids were sick, if they came down with COVID, whatever it was happening in our world, that they had their work with them all the time. And so I budget for that. And so the leadership approves it. There really isn't anything that if we want it, and of course, as I said before, I get the best that's affordable, that makes sense. We are not extravagant here. I think my chair is at least 20 years old and I still love it. I don't want a new one. I'm okay with that.
Can't get rid of it. Can't get rid of it.
Me? No. But if I wanted a new chair, I would buy it. But
right.
To answer that question, there really isn't anything that I can think of that if we didn't need it, we wouldn't get it.
I think that's kind of nice to hear, actually. I think it's, especially if you guys had said, I really wish that we could afford a printer, then I'd be like, oh my God, Lenore, I'll go buy a printer for you. But hearing that, you're like, we're good, actually. There's no stress on that. That's
no,
kind of nice to hear.
We installed a complete hybrid system here in July of 2020. And nice. I thought we would be coming back to hybrid sooner, obviously, than we are right now. Who knew what was going to happen? I just wanted to be ready. So we were one of the first to install the equipment. That we've done plenty of tours with other associations. Just, hey, do you see what we got? This is what we have. Yeah. We haven't used it yet, but this is what we got. And and that there was no question. It's just like, we need this. It's not going to go to waste. And it was there for us to do. The money was there.
And how many people are working with you at the board?
Yes, so we at the beginning of the pandemic, we had 7 staff that were full-time. Now we've had a position dissolve, one staff person retire, and another one decide to be with their kids more. So take a position where they could be with their children during the summer months. And so what I've done with that is decided what our weaknesses were. And we have now outsourced staff in New Orleans, Florida, Albany, and someone here in Syracuse too. They're not full-time, they're part-time, and they are specialized. So I have a communications person who worked for the New York State Association for 23 years. Hired him immediately after our doors closed with COVID, because communication was the only thing that I had between my members and us, right? And I wanted to make sure that I had the top of the line communicator that I didn't have to explain anything to. He knew exactly what I was talking about when I said, you need to do this and you need to send a letter to the governor and it has to say this in it and make me sound really smart. And poof, it's there. So, I am now starting to hire specialists that don't have to sit in this office. They're professionals. They, one individual has been an executive officer and run an 8,000 member MLS. And she's partly retired, but a young retiree, and has all that knowledge and know-how. And so she's going to do some specific things for us. And she's in New Orleans.
Wow. Who would have thought? That is really cool.
Yeah. You don't have to stay in your back door anymore to hire a professional, depending on, what it is you're looking for, of course.
Yeah. Right. In these people aren't real estate agents, right? They're just.
No.
Yeah.
These are they specialize in my business, association management. So that's what I'm looking for are folks that, have been executive officers or in a specific field for an association or any kind of association. It doesn't just have to be a real estate association. Association management can be, pretty broad, but pretty parallel within like trade organizations to another.
Right. It's still, you still have a board. You're still trying to make sure that it's that it runs adequately, that you have the right tools to give to the members and stuff like that. There's some parallels to that. So you guys also do raising the bar events. For people who don't know, it's if a real estate agent attends 3 of them, right, Lenore? Out of the 4?
4 out of 5. There's
4 out of
4
5.
raising the bars. Yeah, 4 raising the bars in Community Day. And if they hit 4 of those, and we track it, they receive 20% off of their local dues.
How do you plan those? Because we're talking like one of them was
Yeah.
the color of law
Mhm.
was one of the presentations we sat through. How do you like think of these ideas? Is it a board that you talk to, or
No, not usually. I just because I'm ahead. I'm always like ahead. So when I heard about the Color of Law book, one of our brokers had bought the book for both boards of directors and just gave it to them. Said it's such a great book. You folks have to read this book. And I'm like, well, who's the author? Let's just call the author. What do they charge? Let's see. Is it 10,000 or 2,000? You don't
right,
know unless you ask, right?
right,
And he was fairly expensive, but you take into consideration the grant that we can get from NAR. All of a sudden, it wasn't so bad because I do budget for raising the bars. Only I was budgeting to have them at a hotel with continental breakfast, and that cost about $1,200. So
okay,
now I can take that money and put it towards Bill Denman, who was the co-author of the Long Island report, and we had him last year.
right.
And so I'm just about like, hey, and nothing's off the table. Doesn't matter where they're from.
Do those ideas just like pop up in your head? It's never just like uh overly. It's just like something that a spur of a moment thing. Ooh, we should get the author in.
No, it we'll be talking about it. Sometimes a director will suggest something and we'll run with it, or a committee will suggest something and we'll run with it. But most times, the agents are selling real estate. I mean, that's what they're here for. That's what we want to empower them to do. My job is to bring the things to them that they need for their business, and not yesterday, but today, right now. What do they need to know right now? And I have to be working on that at least 6 months ahead of time.
Right.
So it's a constant. I'm already working on next year right now.
Oh, I
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah.
We're
So, and
we're
I'm
only
starting.
3 months into 2022. You already got 2023 planned.
Yep. You got to be that far ahead, because typically those speakers, if they're in demand at all and good, right, their calendars are out that far.
Right. Right. And is there a certain person that you had speak at any of these events that really blew you out of the water?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed Bill Dedman, and his motivation for writing the art, participating in the article, and the way he had everything orchestrated. And we had a practice session with him. I learned a lot about what you need to do with a professional speaker. We don't just jump on a call and that's the first time we've ever talked to them. We have practice now, and everyone has to make sure their technology is working prior to we all get together. And then, of course, the day of, something will go wrong. We always know that's
Right.
going to happen. But
Always
um,
happens.
yes, but it's a whole new learning of how you can do these things now. But I would say, to answer your question, probably I felt Bill Dedman did a great job and was very on point.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. And switching more over to like Lenore life, did you sell real estate before you got into this position?
No, never. No.
That's
I
awesome.
I mean, it looks like a very fun career, but there is so much to it and so much disappointment. And you know, I got to tell you, I've been raised by realtors for 40 some years. So I've seen the perils and heartbreaks they have to go through and the disappointments. And so I did not sell real estate, but I owned two units when I was 27 years old. I love to tell that story.
Dang.
Yeah, single woman. And because back in that day, I was typing listing cards. So the listings would come to me first from all the brokers, right? So I've got all these listings and I'm typing up a hard card on them. And so I'm reading everything about every listing, right? So I'm
Oh,
getting a,
right. Right.
so I would call the broker and say, hey, I would love to see
Hey.
this property. And yeah, so that's how I was able to do that. But and even today, my son and daughter-in-law own a 2 unit, because that's how I think that when you're young, it's a great way to build wealth.
Right. Right.
There's no
That's
better way
awesome. Do you
than owning
still
your own.
own any multi-units right now?
I do. I do. I own a 2 unit up on Wellesley Island.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Wow,
that,
that's
if
cool.
I want to if I want to be up there, I have to make it work for me, you know?
Yeah,
So,
right, right. With with your day to day is probably very similar to mine, not consistent, right?
right. You
Right?
know, yeah, you start the morning with your text message returns and emails and directing the staff in the right direction. Not that they don't know the direction on their own, but just a temperature check it, between 6 and 7 in the morning, and on it goes.
Do you have like a routine? Like, do you, it's like write in my journal for a half hour, eat
No,
breakfast at 8 o'clock.
no, no.
I
And
envy
well,
those kind of people. I don't think
no,
I'd
I
ever be like
really
that.
do too. The meditation I meditated this morning. Oh, I think
Nice.
I paused a little bit, but I think that with the technology that we have and using it properly, I'm really efficient, and I can have my downtime when I feel like I need it. I took on aerobic swimming during COVID, so I try to fit in
Oh,
my aerobic
awesome.
swimming. Oh, that's the only thing. That's the me thing that I do, right? So it lets a lot of stress out, and I've really enjoyed that. Helps me, stay in shape through these times. But that's about the
How often
only.
are you swimming? Like twice a week, 3 times a week?
I try to go every day. So if you try
Nice.
to do something every day, it ends up being about 3 times, 4 times a week,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
right? So that's how I make it work.
Are you doing like certain distance or are you just going for like time?
No, just aerobic, and I do some laps, but it's mostly they have water weights. So they're different sizes. So when you put
Oh,
them under
nice.
water, they have different strength.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
there's one that I can't even move in the water. Would be for a guy, a build guy, that has a lot of muscle. So yeah,
Tough,
it's a whole
tough
new
to move
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. That's one thing I learned when I worked for Runnings in my past life, it was like a retail store, and they put me up in a hotel for a week to help get one of the stores built. And I had their gym was terrible at the hotel, but they had a pool, so I was like, well, I'll go in the pool and I'll do some laps. My first time ever swimming laps, and I think I lasted about 10 minutes, and I had to not only battle my elevated heart rate, but also those panicking thoughts that would come into my mind that I was drowning when really I wasn't. You know, like
Yeah,
it's swimming's a different kind of cardio entirely. It doesn't matter if you're a runner or a those freaking triathletes. I have a whole new love
I
and
know.
respect for after that.
I'm nowhere near that level, but just being aerobic and in the water, you're not your joints aren't feeling it as much. You're not as fatigued because you're getting cooled off the whole time, right?
Right.
So, and especially when I wear 5 pound ankle weights on each ankle, so that
Oh,
gives me
dang.
full body workout. So
Right. You're getting the extra credit in.
yeah.
What so in your position, what do you think is like the biggest hurdle you have to overcome?
Uh, well, probably the adoption of technology by my members, and getting the members to read, 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 read. If I had a crystal ball and could entrance the members into doing anything, and I know it's hard because I have so much reading. Someone will get mad at me. You didn't return my email. I'm like, oh, for the love of God. I'm trying to get there,
Yeah,
but and that to to just read everything that we put out, or at least peruse it, because there's so much missed.
right.
And communication in all of our positions, communicating is probably the most difficult challenge that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to a podcast with Tom Ferry, who's a big real estate dude. You probably know him.
Oh, heck,
He had a guest on who had said that really what my job as a real estate agent is just communicating with people, right? We're talking them through how to navigate something. And when he said that, I was like, wow, it's when he said it, like the light bulb went off my head. I'm like, yeah, wow, communication is probably like far exceeds everything else that we do as agents because I mean that's probably one of the most important things to a transaction. One and two, also just making sure you communicate how to overcome different issues or how to what you do in this scenario is one of the most important things. I think I don't know when he said that I was like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that before? Where it was just it's super important. Um, so knowing what you know now, what's one piece of advice you give newbie Lenore fresh into the role of CEO?
I just love that question.
Me too.
Um, yeah, I do. I like it. I guess that I would probably say, don't be afraid to make mistakes and be innovative. You know, you've got to know that if you try something new, it may not succeed, but you can't just you know, bring on the things that you know will be powerful or successful. You have to try everything and not to be afraid of doing that. Sometimes when you start in a new career, you're being judged more than ever before, right? Did we get the right person? And can she do this? She's so young. Because believe it or not, I was young when I started my position with the association,
How old
and
were you?
I'm not telling.
All right, that's fair.
I was pretty young. I
Well, it's
don't think.
13 years ago, so if we do the
Well,
math,
no, that was
technically,
Elvira was 14 years, and I've been here for 27 years.
okay,
So
so
yeah, so I
that
was
doesn't
in.
add up because then that means you would have started when you were like 4, Lenore.
I know exactly, but I was young woman, and I was a little afraid. You know, any woman that age or any person starting such a huge career at a young age,
Fear
um,
of failing is a
You've
real
got,
thing.
you've got, yeah, fear of being judged badly. And, you know, I'm going to let everybody down, including myself. And I moved here for nothing, you know.
Right,
So
right.
it would be not to be afraid. Trust your gut and try everything, you know. And if you fail, you just get up. My mother
Right.
used to say, pull your bootstraps up, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
do the next thing. Just do the next thing. Keep going.
Did when you had stepped into the position, did you have you ever heard the term imposter syndrome?
No.
Yeah, imposter syndrome's like you step into a new role or a new career and you feel like your feet aren't big enough for the boots, right? You feel like you're an imposter in the position.
Oh,
Do you
that is
feel like
really.
you went through that?
Yes, because I remember walking in the atrium and the board office was beautiful. It was a gorgeous building, gold handles and the knobs on the door, you know, cherry furniture is beautiful. And they had beautiful tile in the atrium. And I thought to myself, oh, I have to run this place. Plus I have to manage this building and tenants. And oh my gosh, how can I do all this? And
Yeah,
you just do. You work a
right.
lot, work hard, but you
Yeah.
just
Well,
do.
especially being young in that position too. I've been when I was uh they promoted me to assistant store manager at Runnings. I was 26. If I'm doing my math right, 26.
Uh-huh.
And I was the youngest that was in there. So that pressure of them, me still technically being a kid, because all those guys and those ladies were probably mid 50s. So I was still a young kid to them. And I suffered that big time when I first stepped into management, where I was just like, I'm not making the right decision. I shouldn't be in
See,
this
yep,
role. I don't know if I can do this. But like it just feels like every day you just do your job a little bit better than the last day and it eventually gets better and better and better.
right, right. But you mature, you know, so that and you I just continue to say the no fear. When they say kids have no fear, I mean they jump off of things that now I would never think of doing. But you know, through the test of time, you make your mistakes and you learn from them, and that empowers you.
Empowerment, I think, is a that is super because it almost you get to a point where it happened in real estate for me where I felt like the first year and a half, 2 years, I was very not confident in my abilities to eventually being more confident, more empowered in myself to not only know the answers, but also not feel so bad for having to reach out and ask the questions to the
Yeah.
right people. Um,
Yeah.
so being a real estate agent, what's one thing that I can do that would make your life easier in the future?
Read everything.
read read
Going
your
right back
emails,
there.
Corey. read
There's
your
not a
emails.
test, but yeah, it just you know, you got to read everything to know what's going on. Even I have to. My travel has started back up. I travel about 9 times a year to seminars and training, and I don't think the membership realizes that. So um, I've got to read everything that's going on at that conference. I've got to read everything that's going on here and going back out to the members, what's coming into me from leadership and members. So, then my friends say, have you read this book, or have you read a good book lately? I don't want to read one other thing.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
take my books on tape. Thank you.
Yep.
So, we just don't have a lot of time to, digest reading, but I've got to say that that's the most important thing that a member can do to help us out here, and to be professional to the staff. The staff will be professional to you, and you must be professional to them.
Okay, who is not being nice to Christine? Who's not being, because she's a sweetheart of a lady.
Yeah, they're all wonderful professional women here, and we do have men, as I said, off site, and folks. We just respect each other. We like each other. We've been through a tough time together here. Everyone that went through the pandemic, you sort of have a heightened feeling of fellowship towards one another because you came together and made it through on the other end. Hopefully we're on the other end. So
Yeah, I know, right? Fingers crossed.
yes.
With you having to go to like all these conferences, is there one that you've gotten to go to in the past few years that was like mind blowing?
I just went to one in Atlanta, and it's the National Association of Realtors Association Executives seminars, and they've got a lot of different things. Now mindful things, have come into the atmosphere of our learning, but things for the members, things to motivate us, things to help us personally in our career, products and services that we should be delivering to the agent. So it's really a not to miss for someone in my position. And also the National Association of Realtors conferences. They have a conference. Typically it was in DC in May, and then the annual conference is in November. This year coming up, it's in Orlando. And those are, I would say, the national conference. If you didn't go to anything all year, that's the one you should go to.
In
It will
Orlando?
be, it will be mind-blowing. Absolutely. The trade show floor is overwhelming. You need a whole day to get through it. The products and services that they offer there. We have scholarships for our agents that want to go to the meetings that are held by state, national. And of course, all of our leadership, they're encouraged to attend these meetings too, because that's where they learn what's going on out there, with the
Right.
rest of the world. And that
Right.
is sort of the temperature check on where we are. A lot of our leaders will go to roundtable discussions, and they'll find out that there are things that maybe we should be doing. And most times they find out that they're telling what we do. And that's all good, to share the information.
That's got to be refreshing to hear.
It's my temperature check for me when there's nothing better than having one of my leaders come back and say, you know what? We were doing all the things that everybody else is doing, plus a whole lot more. And then I know that we're doing the right thing.
Wow.
So
That's really cool. That's a good way to kind of put it in perspective, especially when you go to these conferences. You're not just looking at just Syracuse or Cortland or
no.
Ithaca. You're looking at literally the entire nation of
Yeah.
realtors.
Absolutely. What are the big guys doing? What are the big associations and multiple listing services doing? What's the next thing coming? But there's also a lot of industry leaders. Like, we bring in Lawrence Yun, who talks about the economy and what his predictions are. And so you sort of have to listen to that and budget accordingly and bring services accordingly to what he's talking about.
Is there one board that's like national that you like either look up to or keep a close eye on to see like what they do with their board?
Yes. The Houston Association of Realtors, HAR, is very progressive. Of course, they've got a ton of staff, but they are very progressive. And also the California Association. That is
So we talk about Houston real quick. What is the size of their staff? You
a
said you
lot.
have you and 7 people. So
Yeah,
put it in
no,
perspective. Houston's
a lot.
probably like 30
No, or more. Yeah.
or more. That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I know it's mind blowing, but they cover a larger territory of members. And, within New York State, there's quite a few associations. I mean, Cortland has an association of 100 members. And before Oswego and Cuyahoga County merged into our association, they each had around 100, 150 agents. So, bigger isn't always better.
Right.
finding a better way to bring services to those smaller associations, however that might be. For example, we vendor MLS services to Mohawk Valley, to Jefferson Lewis, to
Oh, wow.
Cortland. Yeah, so we are a reseller of services and we act as a vendor of those services because their boards are not close by. They have their own, group of realtors that want to be in leadership roles, and I see it sort of like different sororities, different clubs, and I
Right.
learned that early on when I went to a RPAC picnic in Cuga County, and I showed up way overdressed because in Syracuse, that's how you would show up at a picnic, right?
Right.
But
Right.
in Cuga County, not so much the same. So I learned that every association has their own personality, and I respect it, and it's what their members want. And so I think they should exist if that's what they want. And if we
Right.
can collaborate in other ways that make sense, like the multiple listing service or the lockbox service or the showing service, whatever those services, education, that to me makes sense. But thinking that bigger is better isn't necessarily always the best way.
Right. Right. I love to hear that you guys are collaborating with the other
Absolutely.
boards. I think that's such a not only just healthy for everybody in general, but also, man, what a great way to take ideas from different groups and also be able to, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. We'll give you something, give you some tools, give you the space for education. I just think that just makes a more collaborative kind
Mhm.
of life, especially with all the different boards that float around.
Yeah.
Um, how do you balance everything from personal life to CEO?
Yeah. It's I guess at this point in my life I think I've got it down, but I'm not gonna tell you that, earlier on in my career when I was, putting the building together and still trying to do my job on 7th North Street and then, have my own personal life. Um, it was, you're running, you're not walking to
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
You're not taking naps and going to bed early. So, and it's just to the degree, how successful do you want to be? How good at your job do you want to be? You can muddle through and no one would notice. Or do you want to, be noticed,
Skyrocket.
right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
want to be the best, like you don't want to be a mediocre realtor. You want to be the best out there, right? Just because that's
Yeah.
who you are.
Right. Like that's when I first stepped in the role, I had a very hard time with balance because I'm going from one job that was you show up, you work 8.5 hours, you go home, and then you don't have to think about us the rest
You're
of the
done.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
And when I went into this job, I very much had to focus on balancing everything. Um, I mean, my wife and we were just engaged at the time, but we didn't have a kid, right? And then here comes Ashton, April 2020, and now like balancing work, martial arts,
Mhm.
personal life, dad life, like that has become way more apparent in my life. And I love to hear how different people find their ways to balance that stuff all out. I don't I don't think I ever want to be the number one top producing agent because to me that sounds like a lot less time I get to hang out with my son. I'd
Ab-
much I'd much rather like I want to be a good agent, like a successful, by the books, ethical, uh,
mhm.
writes great offers. But I don't think I ever want to be number one in the
Well,
MLS.
that you're going to be number one in your world, right? And
Yeah, I want to be number one in Ashton's world. You know what I
yeah,
mean? In
yeah, my
Brittany's world.
16 when I 14 or 16 when I took this position. So I didn't have that, and I was a single woman. So, I didn't have a spouse that was saying, come home for dinner, or
Right.
I would have loved to
Right.
have a spouse maybe pick up my laundry or do
Right.
the dishes or make me
Right.
dinner, but that didn't
Yeah.
happen.
Even more impressive doing that all as a single mom. I couldn't imagine doing all that solo. Like that's
Yeah.
just
Well, if he was a baby, that would have been a whole different. If he was your son's age, a whole different story. But as a teenager, and he was a good boy, so didn't give me a hard time.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, now he's like now things are kind of like opening up a little bit. Like I brought him to a listing appointment the other day.
There
He
you
tagged along with me. He had a great time. It was awesome. And now now I get to like bring him to different things. It definitely opens it up a little bit more for all the cool things that I get to do with him.
That's
But
awesome.
Lenore, I don't think I'll ever be number one top producing agent. That the thought of that is cool, right? It comes with a lot of cool rewards and merit, but I'd rather be the good average guy who's just spending more time with his son. To me, that sounds way cooler.
Well, you know what? That's what's important in your life right now. But once he gets into
Right.
college and, you're just looking for
Exactly.
what's the next thing that I should be doing with my career. You never know. You might
Right.
be the big builder or, broker, whatever.
Right. Man, I don't know. Opening up my own board just already making my palms sweat thinking of opening up my
Yeah,
own
that's
thing.
a lot of
Right. Lenore, I thank you for your time. I mean, this was like a whole hour of your day that you got to sit and talk with me. This has
well,
been a
who
lot of
doesn't
fun.
like
I feel like I
talking?
learned a lot.
Right. Thank you. You're very,
I'm sorry, you cut out right before. What'd you say?
I said, who doesn't like talking about themselves? Right. Everybody does.
Right.
So, and I don't do it very often. So very,
With
very, very seldom do I talk about my career. And I always talk about what we do down here, but not much about myself. So thank you for asking.
with a very cool story. The three different people that I spoke to was all right on the money. That this was a very cool and enlightening story. I think not only for like maybe other agents that don't realize where the GSA had started, but even just for the general public of how the board works and all the cool things that you guys provide, because you guys do a lot for us, and
We sure
it's fantastic.
Well, thank you for recognizing that. I certainly do appreciate it. Thanks for allowing me to come on the show.
Yeah, anytime you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome. This has been a blast. Well, thank you, Lenore. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Cory. Bye bye now.